All right, ladies, so this is lesson two, Cold War conflicts. We are going to focus on explaining how the events in the Cold War, the events in the world during the Cold War helped achieve, maintain, or threaten world peace. So these are our words for the day. So we have blockade. So when we see this word block, we know that that's going to be prevent. Sorry if that pop-up showed up. So blockade is to seal off a place or to prevent goods or people from entering or leaving. Now, this is what blockade with a K, but when you see block without any K, it is still a word, it is still an appropriate word, but it is a combination of countries, okay, parties or groups. So it's a group. When we see this, we think of group. When we see blockade like this or block with a K, we mean think prevent. A proxy war is a war instigated by a major power which does not itself become involved. When you are a proxy, you are a stand-in. So you are somebody who is going to fight or have conflict with each other without physically doing it. So if I'm having a proxy war, I'm not actually going to start swinging and fighting. I'm going to get someone who's going to do it for me. Armistice, remember we see that word arm like in here, we are thinking about weapons. So an agreement made by opposing sides in a war to stop fighting, it is a truce, a pause. And then this is our key word when it comes to the Cold War, containment. And when we break it down, we see the word contain. And the idea is that the United States wants to contain communism. All right, the United States does not want communism to spread. Obviously, that is what the Soviet Union does want. So when we look at this map, the question asks for geographic circumstances. So again, geographic circumstances is talking about why is it happening there. So when we look at the geographic circumstances, what I want to point out to you is kind of what we've been talking about with the idea of East and West. So you have NATO members in 1945. So you have NATO members like Great Britain, if we remember our colors. So Great Britain is going to be blue, so will France, Belgium, West Germany, Norway, Italy, Greece, and Turkey, as well as Iceland. They're all NATO members. So they are all going to be non-communist. And then you are going to have your Warsaw Pact members, and they are all part of the Soviet Union, and they're going to be in these areas all in here, and they're all going to be communist. Okay? So basically, this question is asking, why are the communist countries in Poland and Czech and Hungary and not in Spain? It's just asking why is communism in those countries, not why is communism in someplace else. So first big piece happens within the Berlin Airlift and Berlin Wall, as well as the idea of the Iron Curtain. So here in this Iron Curtain, you are seeing a political cartoon that the Regents is famous for using. This is a political cartoon of Winston Churchill. When it says by the order of Joe, it means Stalin. If we take a look up here, we see that it is kind of referencing a curtain. This is a made up barrier. It was not something that was real that separated East and West. So if we go back to the map, this barrier right here would have been the Iron Curtain, but there's not actually a wall there. It's just made up. Okay. Now the Berlin Airlift happened in 1948, and if you take a look at the map, it shows you where in the map it was Berlin. So Berlin was located inside of East Germany, which meant that they were controlled by the Soviets. So East Germany, East Berlin, that's all controlled by the Soviets. The United States had to go into East Germany in order to bring supplies to Berlin, to West Berlin. The Soviet forces blockaded access to those areas, and so the United States and the Kingdom responded by airlifting food and fuel to Berlin in an event known as the Berlin Airlift. Airlifting means that they flew a plane. So if this was, the land, they would fly a plane over. I know you're all loving my planes. And then they would drop the packages down so that the people could have what they needed. They never actually landed the planes. The Berlin Airlift lasts for a year. They have to do this. The Berlin Wall in 1961. So prior to 1961, about 2.5 million East Germans left the East to go to West Germany. So let's keep in mind, the East is going to be communist. The West is going to be democracy. There was a lot more opportunities in West Germany and West Berlin than there were in East Germany and East Berlin. So people like skilled workers, professionals, intellectuals, scientists, teachers, historians, people who were persecuted or maybe didn't have the same opportunities, constantly were fleeing to get over there. So what they did is they built a physical wall and they built a barrier to keep the people inside of East Berlin. There are two documents that come up as part of the United States response to containment. So this is all containment. When you see the Marshall Plan, I want you to think about money. So that M in Marshall is the M in money. It's the money plan. And basically what they do was they gave money to West Europe to not be communist. They paid people to be their friends, paid people to be democracies instead of communism. The Truman Doctrine said that we would give support to countries that were threatened by Soviet communism, and the aid primarily went to Greece and Turkey. And it was seen as probably as more of like an open declaration of the Cold War. These are the first real events. So you're going to have read the next few pages that are going to talk about the other conflicts of the Cold War, and then you are reading those two documents. Those two documents are graded, as well as answering the question on page 27.